Tapos na ang State of the Nation address ni Pangulong Duterte, his fifth and second to the last. It was long, almost 2 hours. He started quite on time, at ang kita natin at some points mukhang pagod na si Pangulong Duterte and he was stumbling through several lines and making fun of himself along the way. But he started quite strong with personal attacks against so-called oligarchs, and he ended also on that note. Of course, maraming pinag-usapan si Pangulong Duterte as usual, but there are 5 key things na nag-stand out. Una-una is yung issue ng ekonomiya at the fact that we have had one of the longest and strictest lockdowns in the world. Now, the President was very quick to emphasize na pagdating sa ating credit rating, either there was an increase or upgrade in recent months or we maintained a very high credit rating. Ngayon, ang kahalagaan kasi ng credit rating is that the higher it is, the cheaper for you para mag-utang. Ang problema dito is that even though you may have a good credit rating, mas mahalaga pa yung economic growth and making sure na inclusive siya. Based on latest studies by leading institutions, the economic picture for the Philippines doesn't look very good. For instance, the London-based Capital Economics Research Group has shown that the Philippines is having one of the slowest recovery in Southeast Asia and the broader Asian region. At the same time, Oxford Economics has projected the Philippine economy to shrink by almost 7%, 6.9%, which is way higher, almost twice higher than the earlier worst predictions of the government, which was around 3 to 3.5%. Nonetheless, the President was adamant na kailangan talaga ng lockdown na yan because we cannot gamble with people's life. At dahil sa lockdown, we prevented the infection of up to 3.5 million people. Buhay muna bago lahat, including ekonomiya. Ito yung argument ni Pangulong Duterte. Expectedly, the President focused on the issue of oligarchs. He started his speech by attacking the recently shut down big media network ABS-CBN and particularly its owner, the Lopezes. And sa kanya, I am a casualty of the Lopezes, presenting himself as the victim than the other way around. At binalikan niya yung issue towards the end of his almost 2 hours long speech, kung saan inattack niya ang Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon, accusing him of facilitating the takeover of major utilities, particularly the water concessionaires, by the Ayala Group, the other big businessman who the President has attacked as oligarchs. Ngayon, kung maalala nyo, Senate Minority Leader Franklin Drilon emphasized that the real oligarchy is not the billionaires, especially the liberal-leaning billionaires who do not have the closest relationship with President Duterte, but actually ito yung mga political dynasties. And it seems the President is not very happy with that. After all, oligarchy means the rule of the few, and studies show that generally, the more you have political dynasties, you tend to have more concentration of power, more concentration of wealth, more poverty, and underdevelopment. And factual correction, Senator Franklin Drilon actually entered the Senate as early as 1995, so it's unlikely that he was part of drafting the laws for water concessionaires to Ayalas and other big business groups, which happened towards the end of the decade. Number 3, the President was very adamant that tama yung kanyang polisiya when it comes to China. He tried to portray China as kind of a savior, saying that he talked to President Xi Jinping at nangako siguro ang China sa kanya na we will be among the first countries to get vaccines if ever available yan en masse. And that para hindi tayo mahirapan economically, China will provide it on some kind of a credit or grant or donation. Moreover, the President emphasized that the Philippines should have a very balanced relationship with all superpowers and avoid having an American military base here in the Philippines, particularly in Subic. But even more controversial was the fact that the President suggested that he is inutil or inutile, wala daw siya magagawa, and that the Chinese are already in possession of disputed land features in the West Philippine Sea and South China Sea. Never mind the fact that President Aquino, his predecessor, actually filed an arbitration award against China, criticized China across the world, got more and more military assistance from the United States, and guess what? No war from China. Number 4, the President called for the Congress to push ahead with passing of the death penalty, particularly with respect to the drug problem, but it seems there was not much enthusiasm for it. And back in 2007, actually, we ratified an international treaty which prohibits execution. So it looks like we have already committed to the abolition of death penalty, and it's not very clear how the introduction of death penalty in our very flawed justice system will help the situation. Perhaps we have to clean up the justice system first before introducing something like death penalty. And some would even say, perhaps we don't need the death penalty. What we need is rule of law, which you clearly are not going to have with widespread extrajudicial killings and violations of human rights. Lastly, number 5, this is the 5th year of President Duterte. In a year from now, the next presidential elections is starting, so people are asking who is the president's heir apparent. By all indications, it looks like his longtime aide and current Senator Bongo, who was very favorably mentioned on multiple occasions in the State of the Nation address. At some point, even suggested that okay lang na umalis siya as long as Bongo stays. That was quite an endorsement of Senator Bongo as a reliable statesman, and how central he has been to the efforts of the government, especially during the COVID-19 crisis. But critics like Representative Lagman have been arguing that hindi ganun ka-clear kung yung mga malasakit center na yan ay very helpful. So Senator Bongo is getting a lot of praise from the president, a lot of airtime, and a lot of responsibility in dealing with the ongoing crisis across the country. Those were the 5 important issues that the president discussed in his quite long SONA, which fortunately started quite on time. Walang pasaway, disiplina. Ako po si Richard Hidarian. Stand with us, stand for truth.